So a short summary on the overall of the project as as it is today. In the beginning, that was 2017, we started to look at the possibilities to grow the algae with or without the wastewater. That was kind of not the main subject. We were kind of wanted to see whether we could grow them or not. In the beginning, the wastewater was kind of an ideal outcome, finding out whether it would be possible or not. But in the beginning, since there were already two trials on growing anything, which didn't succeed, the main object of our preoccupation was to see whether we can grow the algae or not in those set conditions in Grindavik Matarka. We set up a couple of several trials which did succeed, luckily, and from that we took it a bit further, and we did realize that it is possible to grow the algae, but as for the wastewater, it kind of remained pretty unclear whether it changes anything or not. But that was not the main. That was not the only focus of the trials. We also wanted to concentrate on seeing what kind of harvesting methods would be most likely to work, and they also should have been inexpensive and efficient as they can be. We didn't. The idea was not to have anything too complicated. Just a simple production that could work in industrial conditions. One of the conclusions also was that for algal growth, salinity is by far the most important factor. That was one of the initial mistakes that we made when comparing the algae, their growth with the use of wastewater, and without it we didn't have in mind that the salinity should be kept the same. So for our control batch we have lower salinity, and for the batch that we didn't use the nutrients, the salinity was the same, but we kind of didn't have any control batch, so we had the algae with or without the wastewater, and but we didn't have the same level of salinity between them and the control batch. We did get some clues, and they may show that the wastewater does not fully replace the nutrient mixture, but it could have some effect, and they may grow to a certain level. So that could say that the amount of nutrients in the wastewater is unsuitable for them, but with a higher amount they could grow. So I suspect that the initial growth was shown, and afterwards they kind of died because they just used up all the nutrients that were in the wastewater. So it could work, and that needs more attention. As for the species grown, initially the species was undetermined. It did grow though. It grew very well, and I will have to make a comparison of that species with the species that we bought from Scotland. That was determined. I didn't make any weight measurements because I took the algae home, and I was hoping to make it at a later point, but unfortunately I kept them in my window, and all the water evaporated from two of the batches, and I only had 3. So there is a possibility of weighing the last remaining batch, but I'm not sure whether it would show a lot. Regarding the my observations, visual observations, I saw how the batches are in both cases, in all of the cases, and I think that the growth is similar. So there is a chance that the species could be also showing similar growth. But as I said, this is just my observation, and I didn't make any measurements. So as for the ways of growing and harvesting the algae, it definitely is possible to grow them in these conditions. But what I would like to concentrate also is how it would be best to grow them so that it makes easier for harvesting also. Plastic bags shown deficient, but they need a lot of work, and they also have to be thrown after each harvest. That is a lot of unnecessary plastic waste, so it should be avoided if possible. On top of that, it would be much easier to work with something that has a fixed surface, easier to scrape the algae from the surface. What I did notice is that some of the algae will collect on the top of the surface. So depending on the light source or something else, whatever it is, they will sit on the top of the surface. Although it's not sure what their status is, because they are probably much happier moving around than sitting on the surface. That is something that needs to be explored further, and if something should be sent to the analysis, it should be those algae that are set on the surface. Having that in mind, that conditions would be ideal for growing if they would possible, if the protein content and the fat content in them would be suitable for growth. If they are okay, then it would be easiest to just scrape them off the surface and regrow the media that remained in the water. It would be the simplest and the quickest way for harvesting them. Then we could have that sludge. It was scraped off the surface and kept for whatever further processing or not would be necessary, and the rest, the liquid, would be regrown for further sludge. So that is a fairly simple process, easy to obtain, easy to work with, and probably the quickest way to get the algae. If we are running them through some tubing and making the separator, which would separate all the water from the algae, then we would not only lose the media could be regrown, but we would have to concentrate on also on very, very expensive projects. So yeah, that's kind of the summary of what has been done in very, very rough frame. But what my thinking is now is I would like to concentrate with the next steps. This is what I'm going to be writing about. That's the base for the essay. But for the next steps, what I would like to have in mind, and what the essay should also have in mind is how it would be easiest to set up this kind of facility without any specific purpose in mind, without any use of necessarily use of wastewater. What I would like to think about is how to get to the stage when the experience obtained from this could be mirrored somewhere else to make the facility that could produce any species of algae with a possible variation in water, in the media, growth media, and would it be possible to make that anywhere by demand, set up a simple facility that would do that, and that would run the project until the algae would be ready for either further processing or immediate use in the form of that sludge. So that's my area of interest as it is now. The wastewater is an option, and it would definitely help, but it would need investigating. That is not the thing that I would like to concentrate on. The thing that I would like to concentrate is on how to set up the facility that could be applied anywhere else than in Grindavik, and likely set up a facility here in Borgarnes that could finish up that research. That's about it.